When I was 17, I unexpectedly found myself pregnant, and I knew that it was not going to be an easy conversation to have with my family. I was also in a pretty abusive relationship with my boyfriend that I was expecting with. And so I had a decision to make. And as you can imagine, the conversation with my family did not go over well at all. I was called all sorts of names and things that I cannot repeat. I was treated in a very taboo way, and one of my family members said to get an abortion, and I said absolutely not. This is not that baby's fault, and I would never do that to an unborn child who would never deserve that. And so ultimately my choices were adoption or to keep my baby. And I thought about it long and hard, and I decided, well, I'm gonna most likely keep my baby. But as I went to the doctor's office, I knew right away, without being too graphic, that my body was doing something that I knew was not supposed to be happening during a pregnancy. And so right away I got in to do a checkup and ultrasound, and I'll never forget the call when the doctor said, "Shannon, I'm sorry, but you are having a miscarriage." And at that moment, I was so alone, and I felt that God had betrayed me. And I thought, God, why did you do this to me? Why did you give me something so special and then take it away? And again, my family was not supportive. I didn't know where to turn, and I remember being at this point where I wanted to ultimately end my life, because I was going through this dark, depressing thing, and I was told by the adults in my life, well, you sinned against God. You know what you did, and you kind of deserve that. And at that moment, you really feel that. You really feel like, I deserve this, God. And I went outside, and I remember just falling to my knees, going, why, God? Why did you do this to me? Why would you even have put me through that? And it was May, and I was 18, and I was still very much grieving, and I was very much alone. I had no support. I had no comfort, and I was in a very deep depression at that time. And I remember wishing, because it was Mother's Day, that just one person, and I know it sounds crazy, but I just remember thinking at 18, I know nobody's gonna acknowledge me for Mother's Day, but I just wish that somebody would just say to me, Happy Mother's Day. And I went home from work that day, and of course nobody knew about my struggle because it was all swept under the rug. But I remember my dad coming up to me, putting his arm around me and going, I know this doesn't mean a whole lot, but happy Mother's Day, Shannon. And in that moment, it was that full circle that I finally needed. And I felt God for the first time in a really long time. And it just meant that I was forgiven in that moment. And I knew that after I had been through so much at such a young age, and for my dad to do that, to acknowledge that I needed that. And I never forgot that moment. And I completely turned my life over to God at that very moment, and because I knew that only God would allow a full circle moment like that.